Have you ever really thought about it? What's the actual legal difference between murder and manslaughter? For the longest time, the law itself was kind of confused. Today, we're going to deconstruct the brilliant legal framework that finally brought some much-needed clarity to one of the most serious questions in criminal law, the Model Penal Code's approach to homicide.
Yeah, that very question. Where do you draw the line between murder and manslaughter? It used to be a total legal mess. Seriously, outcomes could feel completely random, totally unfair. But then, along came the Model Penal Code, or MPC, and it was designed to replace all of that chaos with pure, cold logic.
You see, the problem was buried in these really vague, ancient phrases. And the biggest offender of them all was malice aforethought. What does that even mean, right? This one term was so ambiguous that the exact same case could be murder in one state and something else just across the border. The law wasn't a system. It was a patchwork quilt, and it was desperate for a rebuild.
And that rebuild came in the form of the Model Penal Code. Its creators did something incredibly bold. They just scrapped the old system entirely, threw it out. Their goal was to build a brand new framework from the ground up, one based on logic and clarity, so that the law could finally be applied consistently and fairly for everyone. Okay, so the MPC's first genius move was to create a single, unified starting point for everything. Instead of all these different, confusing rules, it established one core offense: criminal homicide. The idea is, if you cause a death with one of four specific mental states, purposely, knowingly, recklessly, or negligently, it all starts in this one big bucket. Simple as that.
Right. So if all these unlawful killings start out in the same big bucket, how do you sort them out? The MPC's answer is nothing short of revolutionary. You basically ignore the action itself and you focus entirely on one thing: the defendant's state of mind, or what the law calls their culpability. The physical act is the same, but what was going on in the defendant's head? That changes everything.
And here it is. This is the entire system in a nutshell. That single offense, criminal homicide, gets sorted into this really clear hierarchy based only on culpability. At the very top, with the highest level of blameworthiness, like acting on purpose, we have murder. Down in the middle, for reckless acts, you'll find manslaughter. And at the bottom, for the least blameworthy acts, negligent ones, we have negligent homicide. It's just a clean, logical ladder of blame.
So let's start at the top of that pyramid and really dig into how the MPC defines the most serious offense, murder. How does the code separate a killing that is truly wicked from all the others?
Well, the MPC actually creates two distinct paths to a murder conviction. Path A is the one we all think of, right? An intentional killing. You either did it on purpose or you knew with practical certainty that your actions were going to cause death. But Path B is different. It covers killings that weren't necessarily intentional, but were so shockingly reckless that the law sees them as being just as bad. And this phrase is the absolute key: extreme indifference to the value of human life. This is the MPC's precise modern replacement for those old fuzzy terms like a depraved heart. It perfectly captures those acts like, say, firing a gun into a crowded room. You don't have a specific target, but the action shows such a profound disregard for life that the law treats it as being equivalent to an intentional murder.
The MPC also took on the really controversial felony murder rule. Traditionally, if anyone died while you were committing a felony, it was automatic murder, no questions asked. The MPC softened this. Now it creates a presumption of extreme indifference. This means the jury starts by assuming it's murder. But, and this is huge, for the first time, the defense actually gets a chance to argue that no, it wasn't. All right, let's move down to the next tier and see how this all connects. We're now in the category of manslaughter, which, under the MPC, plays this fascinating dual role in the whole system. So first off, manslaughter is the default crime for a standard reckless killing. Think of someone who knows there's a huge risk of death and just ignores it, like driving way, way too fast, and causes a death. But second, and this is so important, manslaughter also acts as a kind of safety valve. It's a way to take a killing that would otherwise be murder and knock the charge down because of a specific mitigating circumstance. So what is that safety valve? Well, it's the MPC's replacement for the old-school heat of passion defense. It's a much broader concept called extreme mental or emotional disturbance, or EMED for short. This is how a defendant can argue that yes, they might have killed intentionally, but their emotional state was so overwhelmed that they should be seen as less blameworthy.
The test for EMED has two parts. First, there's a subjective question. Was this specific defendant actually in a state of extreme disturbance? If the answer is yes, then the jury moves to part 2, an objective check, but with this fascinating twist. The jury has to ask if the reason for the disturbance was reasonable, not for some generic reasonable person, but for a person in the defendant's exact situation, seeing the world just as the defendant saw it. It's a much more personalized and empathetic standard.
So when you put it all together, you can really see just how deeply the Model Penal Code reshaped American homicide law. I mean, its impact was profound, and its innovations are still at the very heart of criminal law today.
Let's just recap the revolution here. The MPC threw out the confusing degrees of murder, first degree, second degree, all that. It swapped that vague term malice for precise mental states we can actually define. It transformed the rigid all-or-nothing felony murder rule into a flexible presumption. It modernized heat of passion into the much more nuanced EMAD defense, and it just got rid of other outdated rules entirely. This wasn't just a small change, it was a complete overhaul, all in the name of logic and clarity.
And this leaves us with a final, really crucial question. The MPC gave us this beautiful, logical system, but in creating these clean, neat boxes for human behavior, did we lose something? Does a system that's obsessed with logic truly deliver justice, or does it sometimes miss the messy, tragic, and deeply personal truth of why a life was taken? That's the enduring debate that sits right at the heart of the MPC.